Okay, let's get started. So, hello everyone. I think everybody here knows me, but just in case you don't, my name is Matthew Burton, professor of game design here at Webster University. I'm currently in Geneva, Switzerland right now, where you can now take game courses. So, St. Louis students, come to Geneva, take your game courses here. Same with Geneva students at some point. You guys should visit us in St. Louis, take some game courses there. But today we have a very special guest, Justin Bryant. So, Justin is a game alumni student who was in video game production and built one of the best, most successful games out of the class called Darker. So I think, Justin, you were in the first class I ever taught to, Video Game Design 2, which was a really fun class. We built Fight Class, which was a Mortal Kombat spinoff where we took pictures of ourselves and made ourselves into fighters. But yeah, Justin, you're always a huge advocate for growing the game program, making it a fun place to be. So Justin's going to show off some of the work that he's done in the program, outside of the program, kind of give you guys some tips on getting started in sound design and music design for games. So Justin, thank you for being here, and I'll turn it over to you.
All right, I appreciate it. I'll go ahead and get this screen share going. Awesome.
Cool.
Slideshow mode. All right. So I want to thank you for the very warm welcome, Matt. But as he said, my specialty in the game design program was sound design. I think I was probably the only sound designer in my time there, just because it is a kind of a rare thing. But some more things about me. While I was there, I did narrative level and sound design. And throughout my time, just over the course of my life, I've been making music, sound effects, soundscapes for about 9 years now. I started all the way back when I was in high school at a class called Music Tech. In this class, we was focused on learning about DAWs, or digital audio workstations, which is the standard of what every single audio engineer, sound designer, composer has to use to make music or sounds on their computers. That's just the best way to do it. And then we also learned how to do basic piano playing, so just how to read it and then go up and down a couple scales. For those who are musically inclined to know what that is. If you're not musically inclined, that's totally fine. I'll go over why that's okay here throughout the entire time. This class not only piqued my interest in music production, but also wanted me to delve into soundscaping, because at the time I just watched Inception. And if you are familiar with Inception, that soundtrack was made by Hans Zimmer, and he is the biggest sound designer / song composers in all film and television. If you've watched a movie, you've probably heard his soundtracks, and they are phenomenal. Nothing really else compares. It's kind of one of those things where if you slap his name on it, it's going to be a good movie. At least hopefully. From there, I want to teach myself how to create these soundscapes effectively and draw out emotions from people. And these are kind of the DAWs that you can see in the day-to-day life. The top 5 are all good for sound design, doing audio mixing, recording, mastering, and the one at the bottom is called the middleware. It's actually more developing for or tailored towards game design. It is a middleware, and we'll go a little bit more over that later. But this is currently my setup. I'm rocking a Native Instruments Complete Control S88 keyboard. I'm rocking a Native Instruments Complete Audio 6 audio interface. I got a Shure SM7B, as I'm sure some of you can see on the camera. And I'm rocking the Rode PSA 1 boom pole, as well as the Bang & Olufsen HX headphones. Now, I'll go over this a little more in depth later, but even though I have all these pieces of equipment, they are not necessary to succeed. And I'll give you some prime examples later of why that this is just nice to haves and not necessarily needs. But these are the DAWs I use. I use softwares called FL Studio 20, Pro Tools, Ableton, and WWise. Now you may be asking yourself, why 4 and not 1? That's a phenomenal question. These softwares have specialties that others can't do as well as the others. FL Studio is the one I primarily use. It's very beginner friendly, which is why I love it so much. It's got a lot of support, and unlike a lot of softwares out there, like Pro Tools, It is free for every single update. So whenever they add stuff or add new plugins or add a new sound board that you can use, it is just included with it. All you do is update. And that is so nice, because if any of you are in the audio sphere, you'll quickly find out or know that it gets expensive quite fast sometimes if you want to keep adding on new softwares and new DAWs to use. So it's very good to learn a DAW, stick with it, and then branch out later whenever you have not just the time, but the money as well. But Pro Tools is a phenomenal software when it comes to audio mixing and mastering, live sound. Nothing else compares. It is an industry standard. If you are looking to get into more of the live sound style or the live sounds, when it comes to field recording and stuff like that, you are going to use Pro Tools. It is, like I said, you will not escape it. Definitely learn it. Ableton is also a music producing standard and is used by most people who make music. So some good examples is deadmau5, Skrillex. I think last time I heard John Legend was using Ableton on a couple tracks, but that was like early work. But yeah, just name a couple producers you might know or artists you might know. And then WWise is a digital audio workstation or DAW and a middleware that is primarily used to put sound in games like Unity, game engines like Unity and Unreal Engine. This middleware, again, is going to be the industry standard. So if you want to get into sound design, you need to learn the software. And the best part about it is 100% free. You can download it. You can have up to 200 sounds in your project. And you can do that all without having to pay for it. So definitely, if you want to get into sound design, download that software and learn it, because they also have a certification course you can take on their website, which does mean something. I've seen a couple sound designer jobs for big AAA companies like Bethesda, and I've seen some for Bungie. I've seen a couple other companies out there that have that as like, hey, this is a really nice to have if you have a WI certification. But anyway, what do you need to know to succeed as a sound designer? Do you need music experience? Absolutely not. A lot of the time you'll find out that simple dictates honestly really good work, and you don't need to expand from that. And you can not only learn, but grow just from doing field recordings and learning from that. So you don't necessarily need music experience, and that's really, really nice. So a lot of these DAWs might have like music's written down at pianos. Don't let that scare you. Just figure out what the buttons do. It's all you gotta learn. And then from there, a great website, which you should all have an account on if you want to succeed, is freesound.org. The nice thing about this website is that 100%, if not 99.99% of the sounds that are on there are royalty free. And the most things that people might want is just a special thanks in your credits for your games. And that's it. So you can use it as much as you like, 100% royalty free. And it is so nice to have, especially for game students who aren't necessarily very comfortable with going out and recording something, or don't have necessarily the best audio equipment, or let's say you can't go and rent some equipment and use that. So definitely make an account. It's free. You should just do it. Another thing you might need to know is what's called sampling. So a lot of the times you might hear something that's really, really cool and you want to use it, but it has copyright. So what you want to do is learn how to sample. What that does is you take an existing, let's just say song, for example, and you chop it up, remix it, lower the pitch, and just change it to where it's your own original work. And then you kind of circumvent the copyright that way. So again, sampling is going to be something that's going to be a little bit more of an advanced technique, but something you should learn about and again practice with doing, because it's going to help save yourself a lot of time and again save yourself from getting in trouble if you want to, or just again use freesound.org where it's entirely 100% royalty free. Another thing, which is probably one of the most fun parts of sound design, if you don't know, is what's called Foley. So there was a person, I'm forgetting his first name being top of my head, but his last name was Foley. And what his entire job was is he would literally, let's just say a movie company hired him to do sound and voiceovers for their movie, like let's say an action scene. And the example I give every time is, let's say you see a character's arm break on screen. No one really wants to go out and break somebody's arm and record that. That's just very highly unethical. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll grab a piece of celery or a couple pieces of celery, bundle them together, and then rip them and break them in half to simulate a bone snapping sound. So that is in essence what Foley is. So you use other things to create sounds that convince the human brain that that's what you're hearing. Again, there's a more technical definition you can look up, but that's essentially what it is. So like, for example, walking on a snowy path, a lot of times what people will do is they'll put sandbags down and they'll step on the sandbags and record the people's feet to get those footstep sounds. So again, another example of Foley. It is insanely fun. So if you get a chance to be a sound designer on a project, you'll have a lot of fun with Foley. And then kind of the cost. Is it pay to win? Absolutely not. All it takes is a creative mind to get done whatever you need. For example, you can go out and you can buy all these sound packs, all these music kits, all these sound libraries, and you can have everything you want right then and there. And that definitely be the easy button. But obviously that's going to cost you money. If you are creative enough, you can go out yourself, kind of brainstorm what you need, what the sounds you need for a project, and recreate them. So like, for example, I know for one of the projects I worked on, I think it was Axe Soldier, they had a bone enemy and they wanted to have like kind of like a bone rattling sound as like his walking animation, or like, lets you know he's near you. So all I did is I went to my parents' house, I went in our basement, I opened up my old child's toys, and if any of you here remembers Lincoln Logs, I put it all in a bag and I just started kind of shaking it to the animation, and that's how I made the skeletons noises. So that didn't cost me anything, and even if it did, it would have cost me less than $10. So again, if you're a creative, if you can think outside the box, this is very much not going to be pay to win, which is very nice. And again, now we're kind of going to delve into what is a need and what is a nice to have. As you saw before, with all my stuff I have, they are just nice to haves. I will give you a prime example. Martin Garrix, who made Animals, which if you're familiar with that, very, very popular EDM artist, he made that off a really, really bad laptop while he was in college, and that's what kickstarted his career. And all he would do is press the keys on his keyboard for his laptop and just kind of and punch out his melody and then do the rest from there. So you don't need any of these extra equipment. It just makes the workflow easier in the long run, because obviously it's a lot easier to make compositions with a keyboard or a piano in front of you than it is with the keys on a keyboard. So again, all you need is a laptop. That's it. So keep that in mind if you want to get into this field. And now as well, abuse the fact that you're students and save lots of money. A prime example I give people is, let's say you want to buy Pro Tools. Pro Tools for a not student costs about $2,000 to $2,500. For a student, it costs $200. So you can abuse that fact. All you have to do is just sign up with your student email for most of these accounts, or most of these digital audio workstations websites, and you can just get them for hella cheap. So definitely abuse that fact. So if you are, working a job while you're in college, or, can ask your parents to buy it for you for Christmas, all you have to do is just sign up with a student account and save lots of money on every single DAW. A lot of these companies want students to buy them early, because then guess what? They're stuck. That's what they learn. So that's what they learn how to use. That's where they have to pay to do upgrades later. Again, unless you're FL Studio or Ableton, both of those have free upgrades. But anyway, those are just some few examples. So definitely abuse that fact. Student discounts are amazing. Another thing you have to do is have patience, not just with yourself, but also sometimes with your creative directors. I've worked on a couple projects where patience was key, because they knew the sounds they wanted, but they didn't know how to describe it. And sometimes it was like pulling teeth, getting that information out of them. But the second you get it and you can make them happy, it'll make your life easier. But just again, don't lose your cool, don't lose your temper, and you should be 100% okay. And another thing, since a lot of this stuff is not going to be really taught for the moment, Professor YouTube is going to be your best friend in this case. But what I want to say is, obviously, if you see Joe Schmo 35 teaching how to do something on YouTube and he's only got 2 subscribers, probably not the best source. Meanwhile, you see like, Max Beats 45 and he's got, 1.2 million, probably a little more credible. So just make sure when you're learning something, it's from a good source, who's someone who actually knows what they're talking about, not just somebody who thinks they know what they're talking about. So just, again, keep that in mind if you're going to use YouTube. And then here's going to be another key thing. There is a lot of good free plugins you can use and with your projects and your DAWs. But there's also a lot of scam links out there. So if you're going to try and save money and get free plugins, use an antivirus, make sure it's on there. If you're smart enough, make restore points in your computer. And then, of course, for those who are very tech inclined or tech savvy, you can use virtual machines. Again, if you don't know what virtual machine is, don't really worry about it. It's a lot to dive into. But again, use antiviruses. There's plenty of ones out there. Would definitely recommend doing that. And then I learned this the hard way very many times throughout my career at college because I didn't learn from my mistakes. But save often. If you don't know, Control S is the save shortcut, which is universal for every single program I know. So make sure you save. I know a prime example is when I was doing my senior overview project. I worked on about, I want to say 10 hours straight, and I got to a place I really, really liked. And right as I was about to save, it crashed. And I lost almost, I don't know, I did lose everything I worked on for the 10 hours and I had to start all over from where I was before. So Control S, save, get that done, because you're gonna thank yourself. I don't care if you moved one note, changed one sound, moved one meter, panned one thing over. Control S, save, please. And then lastly, listen to your surroundings. You never know what you'll hear and think that would make a great sound or song. I know last time I taught this class at Webster, I presented this class at Webster. We were in the upper floors in the game lab, and I told everyone, hush, listen, and we could hear the cars driving by, and I said that would make for a great ambience. So, and all it takes is just pull out your phone, hit the record button, and you'd be surprised at an iPhone's microphone what it can pick up and sound pretty decent, especially for simple things. So definitely pay attention, and you'll thank yourself later and build up your sound library. So now you might be asking yourself, okay, what's it like actually doing this and making soundcapes or music and sound effects? So your life as a sound designer will be in phases. Your phase 1 is going to be, you're given a task / an idea to make a piece of music or a sound effect that needs to be created. Then in your phase 2, you want to take that idea, you want to try and create it / recreate it. You're then going to make that sound again, or research how to make it if you don't already know how. And then from there, you're going to hit a wall. It happens every single time. And that's okay, because right after you hit that wall, you're going to have that brain blast moment. You're going to realize, wait, this is what I need to do. And from there, you're going to mix and master that sound after you record it. And then from there, you will then present it to your creative director or your audio lead or your sound director. And then your phase 8, which is what you're hoping for, is that the sound is accepted, and then you move on. But this does happen. Your sound might be rejected and needs something else redone. And if this happens, you go right back to phase 2, and that's okay. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I present a sound, I'm like, this is amazing. This is God tier. They're going to love this sound. And my creative director goes, nah, it doesn't have enough of, not enough boom in your sound. And you have to figure out what that means and then go from there and recreate it. But then hopefully after that, you want it to be accepted, and then you have your pride and your relief in your sound, and then you do it all over again. But You might be asking yourself, that's cool, but what can you do? So there's a couple examples of the work I've done, and just make sure everything's going according to here. Cool. Make sure the sound's going through. Cool. This is an example of the horror I did for my game Darker. Actually, no, this was for a different game. This is for a game that had a cave dungeon. So notice as it's playing, it's going to be very, very eerie, kind of off-putting. For those who are musically inclined, this key is in a minor key, because in human psychology, it's when things are in the minor key, it kind of puts you at tensions. So that's an example of that. And it always is going to loop. Make sure at any time you can have your ambience loop or your sounds loop, because then you don't have to worry about people being like, hey, this just started and stopped and then restarted. It's very off-putting. It does that. I know as me and Matt were talking before, I worked on a game called Fight Class, and this was the opening cutscene / the title music for the game. And this again going to be very, very simple. And then, oop, too far. So open this up to the class. Out of what you just heard, how many instruments do you think I used in that song? And anyone can answer.
0.
One dog, but 5 instruments.
6.
I heard 5. Unfortunately, it was not 0. I used a little more than that. So in actuality, and I'll count the drum kit as 1. But all I used was a drum kit. I used a lead and I used a bass. That was it. All is I just changed the octaves, meaning how high the pitch went and how low the pitch went for my lead, and had different effects on it to change how it sounds when it got to that later half of the song, whereas like kind of like the alien, nasally sound. But that was it. And a lot of the things that I want to make sure is known is that you do not need to do anything complicated. This took me maybe hour, maybe 2, if that, to make, because all was very simple. I pressed one button on a keyboard with an arpeggiation effect to have that melody of it's very, very simple. And you're going to learn the tricks of this trade as you go and experiment and look up how to make certain things. And same thing with, like I said before, with Professor YouTube. All I did was I looked up, I was like, okay, I've never made a synthwave song before. This is kind of what they want. So I looked up examples, people, how they made theirs, and then I kind of learned from that and grew. Oh, see, Brian. And then from there, made it very, very simple. So then next is what I was talking before, is like sampling and remixing. So if any of you have watched, or before I get there, for this game, it was a game called Superstore Survival. Its theme was it has to be scary but funny. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds almost impossible. It's very difficult to make a background slash ambience that's supposed to be scary and funny at the same time. So I went back to my creative director and I said, look, I can make something off-putting and be a little ironic. Is that okay? And then he was like, yeah, that's fine. So the game took place in a giant department store, and the whole idea is to avoid doing your job as much as possible. So from there, I was like, okay, I am not very well familiar with doing what's called the music, or making a music category, which is called Muzak, and that is elevator music practically. I can't describe it any better than that. But that's what every single department store plays and uses. I'm sure if you've been into like a Walmart and Home Depot and you listen to their soundtracks that they play, if they're playing anything, it's very, very simple music. It's barely the radio. So if you've listened to anything from YouTube circa 2017, I'm sure you've heard people use this on their tracks. But this is what an example of sampling is. And again, that loops back into the normal. So as you can probably see and guess, all I really did there is I added a vinyl effect and a scratching effect to give that skipping. And then I just cut it up, made things repeat that weren't originally supposed to repeat, and then changed its arrangement a little bit and moved pieces around. So that then took this song, again, it was already royalty free, but I wanted to make it a little bit more fun, and meet the theme. And then I change it. So that, again, that's going to be your good example of sampling and remixing. So definitely keep that in mind as you go forward. And then the same game, when you get caught by a customer, my creative director was like, all right, cool. I need you to put like a really, really, really intense, like movie-esque, like you're getting chased. So I was like, all right, cool. So here's what that sounds like. Again, press play, it all loops. You always want things to loop. Keep that in mind. Always, always loop. But just like before, I have the drum line, I have the drum kit. I have the chasing violins, and then I have that little wailing sound. That's it. Very simple. Took me 30 minutes to make. That's all I needed. And luckily that was back before where I presented it and he's like, that's amazing. I don't need anything else. And I was like, cool. We moved on. So definitely love when that happens. And then lastly, this is an example of a sound effect. And this is, very, very simple. If you've like played a Mario game or played an old retro style game, I was tasked with making a health sound effect. Again, you just take it from one note and you just climb it up and you just have it keep going another octave or 8 notes up. So very, very, very easy. Again, 2 minutes. That was that. And again, they loved it. So definitely what you can kind of see or guess the theme is simple is also very good. Because if you go back and you keep, pondering and, dwelling on it, you might find that you're changing things and it was a lot worse than it was before. Because it's definitely times where I've finished it, looked at it, and then went, this is awesome. After I spent 6 hours of work, come back and I'm like, wait, this sucks, and then just change everything. So, sometimes simple is good, but again, you always still want to iterate, check back again. And then once you finish it, you go back, you check it, like let's say an hour or two later, and think that sounds amazing still, then that's when you present it. So always you definitely want to still iterate as much as you can, but keep it simple at the same time. Now, kind of going to show you some things with WWise, because I know it's a game class. I'm learning about game sound design. So in here, this is WWise. As you can see here, this has a couple different folders here, audio devices, master mixer, hierarchy. How this software essentially works is you can have different events, and those events trigger a folder of music or folder of sound effects, sorry. And it picks them either in chronological order, or if you're on a certain material that you designated, or it's entirely random. And as you can see here in the and towards the middle under the actor mixer hierarchy, or under the ambient section, the birds, there is 4 different types of birds, and it will pick that randomly. And then inside that folder is another set of sounds. I think there's like 17 robins in that robin sounds, and it picks from those randomly. Because you definitely want to have a randomicity when it comes to your sound effects for ambience, because if you hear the same thing over and over and over again, it's going to be very off-putting, and it's not going to keep the ambience of something that you don't want noticed. So unless you're going for that, obviously if you're trying to go for something off-putting, then keep it all the same. It'll definitely weird people out. But from there, you then create events, and then those events actually then show up in your game engine. And then from there, you can place them all over your map, and you'll have different attenuations, and you can set different materials. And then the attenuations, I know I just mentioned that, is the radius in which a sound can be heard, from the loudest point being the center of the sound, and then of course that meter bubble being the quietest you'll hear it. But then that's what that looks like in engine. This is currently in Unreal Engine. So the center point where you see that that white circle or sphere with the arrows pointing out, that's the center of the effect. That currently is a bird. And then as you see these yellow lines of another sphere, that one is the attenuation. So if you go to that axis where the lines intersect, that's the quietest you'll still hear it. And then of course, as you get to the center, that is the loudest you'll hear it. So that's what that looks like while you're using it in an engine like Unreal Engine. Then you might ask yourself, what's that look like in action? And this is what it does. I'll go ahead and open this up. This is my senior overview project. Go ahead and pause that, make sure it's still showing cool. And everything you're hearing was a purposely placed sound or a footstep that's tied to character animation. The nice thing for you guys is that I mastered this game for headphones, not for speakers. So you can hear a lot more of what's going on compared to other classes where I teach it live and in person off their speakers. And the nice thing about Unreal Engine and this project in particular is I didn't place any of these like props or these buildings. All I did was put the sounds in here. And the nice thing about the Unreal Engine's game store or asset store is there's a lot of people that just shell free levels that you can like do stuff with to add to your portfolio work. So definitely use that tool if you want to get into this as well, if you're not that confident in like level design. But yeah, so that's what that looks like. And the nice thing about every single sound is it pans correctly. So if you have a sound on your left, it looks to the left, and vice versa. So that's kind of what that looks like. And now I know a lot of people here that in the game program need to make a portfolio if you have not made one already. And I am going to show you what that looks like, or what a good one looks like, because at my time at Webster, unfortunately, I didn't really have someone to base that off of. I definitely want to make sure you all have that. So this is, again, what a portfolio, a nice one looks like. You can use Wix. I was lucky enough to have a person that could make something or help me make this to make it look really nice, because I'm also not the best when it comes to design. But that being said, I know we talked a little bit before, but this is my game, Darker. It was my video game productions class, or my teens assignment. And we made this over the course of one semester. We only worked on it, like I said, like the normal class, like about 3 hours a week. And this, kind of the itch.io page. Here's kind of the demo of what the game looks like in Engine. But that's just a little demo / teaser from it. But the nice thing about this is I learned a lot as being a creative director. And if you also want to be a creative director, a couple key takeaways I can give you is: one, patience is a virtue. You're going to have people that are going to be more committed to this project than others, that are going to be, shelling out work left and right, making iterations, doing a lot. And then you're going to have people that, kind of lacking. And there is a good way to ask someone to do their work, and there is a bad way to ask someone to do their work. And I, unfortunately, a lot of the time did the bad way until I realized it was the bad way. And that being said, you don't want to harass someone constantly. Instead, you want to take it up as like, hey, I see this isn't done yet. Are you having troubles? Do you need help? Then it makes, not only does that person then feel less intimidated, but they also, are more comfortable asking, like, yeah, I actually need some help. Like, I need Matt to come help me do this real quick. I don't know how to do it. Or like, hey, I need the other level designer, other coder to help me with this. I know it was mine, but I could really use their help so I can learn and grow from it. And then from there, you facilitate that connection. You then get that done, and then everyone learns from it and grows. That is definitely the correct way than just yelling at someone and getting upset. So definitely keep that in mind. But everyone here can play this game, download it. It works on pretty much any computer imaginable. Some accolades from this game is, I haven't checked the recent numbers, but at least back when I did this project, and it was in the first month, it got 850 downloads, I want to say, and was number 4 on the popularity page of itch.io, which, I'm going to set the bar high. I get that, but I want every single person who is a creative director or part of my project in your video game production class to beat me. I need you, steal some of that limelight, be better. I want you to succeed, because this stuff looks amazing on your resume and is, a really good booster for it. But then, like I said, there's kind of comments. People do different videos. People sometimes have great things to say, and sometimes they have a thesis of why they don't like the game, but that's okay. You learn a lot. You learn more from people who don't like your game than people that do like your game. So that's kind of what I did there in Darker. Again, I have like a little read more page, different things, and there'll be links, and I'm sure Matt will send out this presentation. You can click on all this yourself and use it as a nice example. But like, as a sound designer, I always want to try and put my sounds inside the game. That way, people can look at it, see my work without having to necessarily scroll through a list. It's all categorized, organized. They can look at it and be like, oh, this is what he did in a horror game, or this is what he did on a fighting game, or blah blah blah. So from there, definitely. And another thing is to hype yourself up. Companies love people who are confident. If you show that you are God's gift to the world versus somebody who's like, oh, well, I think I'm good, they're going to choose people who think they're God's gift to the world because that's what they want. That's what they need. So definitely be your own hype man. Prove why you're the best. Don't just say you're the best, prove it. So definitely do that. Some other projects I worked on. This was the Game Jam game I worked on. As a sound designer, we did Zombies Ate My Homework, which I know, which may or may not be on the App Store. I'm not sure. But that being said, it's a very fun experience. I loved every single second with it. And I did the sound effects for it. Again, just for time's sake, I'm not going to play every single one that I see here, but you can definitely listen to it on your own. But yeah. And then from there, Superstar Survival is going to I mentioned before. My senior overview is what we watched before. Axe Soldier, Golden Hope, and Bean 2. That was a fun little thing. Definitely a nice juxtaposition there. But you guys can obviously listen to it at your own leisure. But yeah. And then, of course, oh yeah. And then I know another thing you guys, and Matt's been pushing is LinkedIn profiles. This is going to be and something you can add me on LinkedIn as a connection. I don't care. I will add you right back. Again, feel free to ask me any questions you'd like, but definitely, a good LinkedIn profile is going to have where you're currently working, your education, definitely a nice little title page where you are, some featured posts about yourself that's might be in like other websites. So like for example, this was the post that was made by Zach, one of our coders, on LinkedIn, which kind of had our credits and got a lot of traction from it, like 101 impressions. So a lot of people saw that. And then from there, add your experience, where you worked, what you learned, skill sets you have at that job. And then from there, again, just list general skills, your education, any honors or awards. Like, for example, I got department honors at Webster at my time there. So I put that on there. And then again, the interest section, you can definitely put companies you're following, schools, that's all fine. But yeah, so that's again one of the example of a good LinkedIn profile pages. And have a nice picture, smile. If you smile, you look a lot more presentable than someone who's frowning. So definitely, try and make yourself look presentable. And then yeah. And then from here, now we get to the questions. So I just shelled, for lack of a better term, a shitload of information at you. Do you guys have any questions before I move on and show you what a DAW looks like? It can be something as simple as, what's this DAW do? Or it can be something as, a little more complicated, or it can be something as simple as, hey, what'd you think of the new Mario game? I don't care. I'm here to answer your question. So I'll open the floor up to everyone.
Justin, I volunteered our links on LinkedIn for everybody to connect. So hope that's okay. But yeah, connect with Justin, connect with me if you'd like. Get some inspiration from Justin's LinkedIn page and Wix page. And I'm going to volunteer you again. Ask Justin on LinkedIn if you ever have questions on sound design.
Yeah, for sure. I'm 100% okay with it. And yes, that's how this. I forgot how Zoom works. Yes, Theodore, what's going on?
Yeah, I was actually wondering if you ever dabbled in some psychology or anything like that with sound design, just because on the surface level I'd assume faster tempo is fear, and that's how you could get the user to feel that. But are there any correlations that you've noticed other than that?
Yes, and that is a wonderful question. I have dabbled heavily in the psychology of sound design, because to be able to draw out emotions, you have to understand what the human brain thinks as a collective. So as you kind of mentioned, faster, higher paced things, they kind of disrupt your brain a little bit and make you think, oh, this is a little intense. This, might get the heart pumping. This is kind of good. But then there are other things like psychology, which I'm a prime example. If you've ever watched the Dark Knight movies, anytime Joker is on screen, there is always a rising violin that never finishes the chord. And so, like, for example, there's 8 notes in a scale, and typically a chord can go from 1 to 3 to 1 to 5 to 1 to 8 as a simple one. And it'll always go from 1 to 7. It never resolves. And that gives you that sense of tension, unease. It makes you like, oh, wow, this Joker, he's kind of freaking me out right now. So that's just a simple example of psychology. And as you can probably see, and in my work, I love horror because as a sound designer, it is your job to create the horror game. I don't care what goes on screen. If your sound is horrible, you will never scare anyone. They'll just go, haha, this is a little corny, funny game. But if you actually really do a deep dive and you study and you listen and you research and you go in that psychology and you make something truly scary and off-putting, it will scare people. There is a couple videos of people in my itch.io page for Darker where they're playing and they get scared by what's going on because of the atmosphere I put in there, and of course, the loud jump scares that can happen. But yeah, that's just so definitely it definitely is important to do your own psychology and research. That's a great question. And then let's see, I see Mateo is asking a question. What's going on?
Hi, I was just wondering if there's a specific aspect of sound design that you enjoy the most, and if that's changed with your time and the experience.
So definitely some aspects I really enjoy. As I said before, I love horror because you are the game. You get to really have fun with people. Again, draw up that emotion. But it's definitely when the most gratifying part of being a sound designer is when you present a game and a project and no one mentions like your ambience or no one mentions your sound, because that means they were so immersed they didn't notice it, that it didn't bother them. Because if people see that, oh, that sound was awful and that just totally took me out of the game, that's a really big red flag for a lot of people. So when your work goes unnoticed, a lot of time, that's when you did a wonderful job. Now, again, on the flip side, if you're a horror game, you want your work to get noticed, because if it doesn't get noticed, it's probably not scary. But definitely drawing out emotions is my favorite aspect of this. And it's that's always been it. And I think it always will be. But I know, like, for example, I love showing my girlfriend new things I'm making and watching her reaction is like, ooh, that was scary. That I didn't like that one. I'm like, good, I did good. So definitely some good things to look out for there. But yeah, is there any other questions? Again, I don't care if they're simple, easy, dumb, stupid, smart.
Have you released any songs or music on Spotify or Apple?
Me personally, no. I used to have songs on YouTube, and I know I've talked to this about Matt a little bit, but unfortunately for me, my YouTube channel where I uploaded my music got copyright stricken, where essentially these guys were like, hey, you just uploaded our song, even though it was my own original work, and I could prove it, but YouTube does not care. They are a strike down, ask questions later, don't do it again type of company. So that is put a sour stain in my mouth. But I am definitely kind of working towards building the confidence, not just the confidence, but building a library of stuff to upload, because I realize there's not a lot of free horror tracks people can use. So I think it's going to be one of my next big projects, is then uploading that and have it be royalty free. So that being said, it will happen eventually, but yeah, that's why there's nothing currently up. But I'm always more than willing to help and answer questions or collaborate on projects, because not only does that help you out a lot, but that helps me out, because again, more portfolio work, more just exposure. But yeah. And then Joel, I see you have your hand up as well.
Oh yeah, hi. So yeah, my question is, I was wondering how, like, making sound or designing sound, your design approach changes when you're kind of like tailoring the audio to a specific output device.
I'm not entirely sure. Could you elaborate on that a little more?
because you were saying like when you were making the audio for a game just for headphones, I was
sorry. Yes. Yeah. So when it comes to tailoring audio, one, you're going to have your own set of equipment, because obviously you can't mix for speakers if you don't have speakers. So you have to have your own set of speakers so you can tailor it towards. I primarily took this as since my senior overview, most people are going to watch it on their laptop with their headphones in, where my professor was at the time. So I was like, okay, I need to tailor this to where it sounds very good for headphones in particular, because if you don't know, sound is a lot more clear, a lot more subtle, and you have a lot more detail when you have headphones on versus when you have speakers, because obviously, the speakers are right against your ears, so you can hear all the nuances and the subtlety. If you listen to that senior overview project again on your laptop speakers, I guarantee you a lot of the stuff and the sounds are going to be muddled out. You're not going to be able to hear it, and overall it's not going to be the best. But that's why a lot of the times, if you notice, and like for example, if you boot up the new God of War game, at the very beginning when it asks you to optimize your sound, it says, do you have this, are you playing on a sound system, are you playing on headphones, are you playing on a sound bar? And then it changes the audio. So sometimes your job as a sound designer or a composer might be to mix it for different mediums, like you just said. But then, I just made an executive decision at that point. But definitely, this will be something you reach out to your creative director for and say, hey, do you want me to tailor this towards headphone users? Do you want me to tailor this towards sound? People use a sound system, and so on and so forth. So that's definitely the approach you'd have to take, if that makes sense. Anyway,
That's a good question. And something we'll talk about in our next class for everybody in the Geneva Game 1500 classes, the 2D versus 3D audio. So like Justin was showing in WWise and Unreal, as you say you're looking this way and there's sound coming from this way, you would hear that out of your right speaker. So that's using 3D audio, versus in 2D games, generally you get the same audio from both speakers because everything is flat 2D. So we'll kind of talk about how that works and how to implement those.
All righty.
Cool. No more questions?
Yeah, feel free to ask. Like I said, can be simple, can be stupid. I don't care. I love answering questions.
Okay, so I got one. So with Foley, we're supposed to not break bones. Don't break real bones.
Yeah, don't break real bones. That would be very unfortunate for a certain someone who's getting on the receiving end. But
for real, about Foley, what has been your favorite Foley design experiment?
I think that's actually a wonderful question, because I haven't even thought about that myself. So I think probably one of my most favorite ones was, I was tasked with recreating a rain effect, and I wanted to challenge myself on that one in particular. I was like, well, I'm not going to just record the rain hitting the ground or water hitting a pan, or sorry, water like falling from like a faucet and running water. I don't want to use no water whatsoever. So I was like, okay. So I thought outside the box. I was like, wait a second. I know the perfect sound, and turns a lot of people know it too, is all I did is I turned on my stove, got it nice and hot, and I put bacon down and I let it fry. And letting that fry then gets that grease boiling, and then actually turns out a lot of people use that same technique just to get rainwater. I know another wonderful example, not from my own project, but thinking outside the box, is in Halo Infinite. I don't know if you know this or not, but the grunts noises were actually recorded by one of the team members' dogs, and that's the Foley they use. It's a bunch of pug noises. So that's actually something cool.
Yeah, I've seen that video. It's actually really funny to see the grunt noises with like the pit bull dogs in the background.
Oh yeah, it's cool. Definitely some fun you can have with Foley.
Yeah.
And then let's see, we have another hand up. What's going on?
Do you play games on console?
Yes, I have. So actually, and Matt knows this, but I actually collect consoles. I'm up to I think 16 now. Just to name a couple, I've got an Atari 2600 and television. I've got I have every single Xbox up to the most recent gen. I have every single PlayStation. I've got a Sega Genesis. So I love console gaming. Now I will say though, I am a PC gamer through and through. I played PC when I was growing up with my dad. First game I ever played was Half-Life 2. So I'm a PC gamer through and through for the most part, but there are definitely some games I will still much rather enjoy on console, like Elden Ring or God of War, the most recent one, even the 2019 one. But yeah, I love consoles, and that's why I always like to collect them.
Nice. I was thinking of buying God of War. What's so special about the game?
One, if you've ever played the original God of War games, it's such a just tonal narrative gameplay. It's a total difference between the original games, because the original games were just kind of beat 'em up, button mash, quick time event, beat the game, wasn't really much to it. But in the new games, you have a very compelling narrative story with an immersive soundscape, and since I'm a sound designer, I really care about soundscapes. With great combat mechanics. If you've played a Dark Souls game, I can sort of akin it to that style combat, of where there's enemies you lock on. There's a pairing game mechanic, blocking, light, heavy attacks, special abilities, and it just really gets you enthralled in this game. And the other thing too is that if you like gods, there's a bunch of different gods from the Norse mythology that are in both games, that you just get to kind of see them in a different limelight, because in this game they might not be what you think they are, and that's really cool. I like the different approach on it. So I would highly recommend God of War for anyone who can, or anyone who hasn't played it before. But if you haven't played it before, maybe don't play it on the hardest difficulty. You might hate yourself a little bit.
All right. This is actually my first time playing it.
Yeah, if it's your first time, definitely, I'd definitely say go through it on an easier difficulty, because the game can be kind of unforgiving at certain points if you're playing on harder difficulties. I unfortunately am stupid and love to play the games on the hardest difficulties and get really frustrated. So yeah, definitely you can enjoy that story. It's very, very, very good. And then, like I said, you can go back through it later on harder difficulties if you really want to.
All right.
All right. Is there any other questions people might have for me? Again, anything goes, and everything's fine. All right. Well, I guess we'll move on. So I'll show you this last few page. This is my contact information, obviously, for people who don't have to worry about international roaming. That's my cell phone. Feel free to text me. I have my email. I have my LinkedIn. Again, if you have any questions, comments, or want to know how to do something, please reach out to me, because if I don't know the answer right away, I can definitely find out a lot faster than you could. And so please use me as a resource. I growing up throughout high school and into college had no one but myself to really help with. So I had to figure this stuff out on my own. So I can show you my knowledge and my information and help you out. Even if something as simple as, hey, I want this sound, what would be some good tools to use to recreate it? Or what would be a good website to find that sound? Or even, hey, could you make that sound for me? And a lot of times I'll say, sure. And all I might ask in the end is just, hey, a special thanks at the very end of your game. That's it. I understand you guys are students and you can't pay me, and that's fine. I do this because I love it, not because I want to get paid. So definitely use me as a resource. But again, you'll have the slides. You can reach out to me, LinkedIn message, email, cell phone. I don't care. If you're gonna call me, just text me first. Because if I see a random phone number, I'm probably gonna ignore it, like most people. So that being said, that's what that looks like. But yeah, other than that, the last thing I will show you all is what a DAW looks like in essence, because I actually get to do that since I'm doing it over remote.
Sweet.
So this is FL Studio 20. As I've said before, it's very, very simple. It's very beginner friendly. Again, they might look like there's a lot of buttons on here. It's very scary. but you learn it pretty quick. It's very simple. This is going to be your track list where you can post your patterns you make for your songs or your full tracks. That's your little mixing right there for your volumes. This here's a little bit, it's your plugin browser. So again, it might look scary now, but trust me, this is probably the simplest one out there. So, one of the nice things about this software, as I've said, if I'm currently breaking it, actually, I want to start from new. So I'll just go ahead and load in one of my nicer ones. So as I said before, simple is nice. Again, I'm not gonna lie, I did pay for this one, this software bundle. Again, using my student deals. I got it for about $100 or $200. But just as we were talking before, kind of like psychology, I know this track here, this plugin called Thrill with the adrenaline soundtrack to it. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press one key. And has that really, really nice high quality audio to it. And all I had to do there, like I said, press one key and have that very, scary, bone chilling, the killer's right around the corner type vibe to it. And it's so nice. And I can't tell you the amount of times I used that, or I used this one here called Kinetic Metal. And they all have different things you can do. Some are note oriented, so you can change the tone, kind of like you're hearing here. But I like things, again, as I said before, I don't need to keep reiterating, but I love horror. You can do so much with it. And sometimes you have things like this where you can have more cinematic things going on. So again, this is a very, very nice tool to have, use, play with. This is again called Contact Ultimate. 12 is the current version. I think they're up to 14 right now. That's what I have. But you can do a lot of different things in this DAW, other than, of course, if you're into beat making, you can press these tracks here. Play with this. Kind of sounds like I'm making the jellyfish beat from SpongeBob, but you can definitely play with that. Have a beat mixer here for people that aren't musically inclined and don't know how to draw the notes. You can have that in there. Once you have your patterns, you paste them down here, and then you can go to your song and play it. Obviously, you don't have anything in there right now, but from there, you can again draw it out, drag it out as much as you like. I unfortunately don't have a song. As I told Matt, I had to reset my computer recently due to there being malware on it. Even the best of us are susceptible to viruses, unfortunately. But that being said, once you have something out, I'll just quickly put this in here. Let's go to the keyboard, drag it out for 4 measures, and then bam. That's what it looks like. And I can then change this to, let's say, the 5th knob on here. And I can change its volume. I can change where it pans in your headphones. Oh, sorry, this would be your panning. And you can even add different automations. So like if I wanted to create an automation clip, I can change the panning. And I can have it go left and right as it ascends and goes through the track. Actually, this will be this. But yeah, so again, a lot you can do with it, play with. FL Studio itself comes with everything you see here minus the contact tab. So a lot to play with. I know like Flex is a really popular one right now. And the nice thing again, like FL Studio, it's not free, but you can use a trial for free. You just can't save any of your songs, but you can play with it. I think did I use? But yeah, so again, this is what a DAW looks like in essence. Very nice to use. And it's going to be, your life, your bread and your butter. A lot of the game companies are going to say, hey, it'd be nice if you're familiar with this DAW, but as long as you show proficiency in the DAW you're currently using, you can use whatever you want. And even the job I'm currently applying for said you'd use your DAW of your choice. So this is probably what I use. But from there, is there any other questions that people might have or want to see that I can try and facilitate as best I can? All right. Well,
No final questions? Okay. Cool. Justin, this is awesome. I'm really excited to see what you do next. Hopefully things work out with that new opportunity we talked about before the Zoom. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining. Justin, you're a rock star at this. So a lot of the tools that Justin mentioned for my class that I have in Geneva, we're going to explore this Wednesday. This video will also be on our YouTube. So if you missed anything, you want to revisit anything, we'll have it on our YouTube pretty soon. But Justin, thank you for your time. Thanks for sharing all of your knowledge, all the tools, your experiences. You're the man. Thank you again.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Some of you see you tomorrow, and then the rest in St. Louis, I'll see you guys on Discord.
All right.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
See you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.